Okay, JD here. So I'm the co-founder of SummaUp, and today we're going to go answer the age-old question of whether Jeff Bezos, Sergey Brin, and Elon Musk are on TRT or if they're juicing or not, right? So the reason we're bringing this idea up basically is because one of our clients actually emailed us this article talking about the three of them and suggesting that they are on something. Speculation, right? It's always speculation. Just from our background, we have worked with quite a few kind of individuals that are prominent, and obviously from patient privacy considerations, we can't name names, but a lot of individuals from kind of former pro athletes, NFL players, professional cyclists, Olympians, and so forth, right? And we do have a lot of high-level executives, and it's clear that they're all kind of taking a proactive nature in their health. They are investing in kind of certain therapies beyond TRT, so growth hormone secretagogues. They're taking kind of other types of therapies that help them out with their focus and so forth. But right now, what we're going to do before we jump into that, we'll talk more about this article. That's super interesting, and I'm going to share my screen and talk about that, right? So the article is Competitive Hormone Supplementation is Shaping America's Future Business Titans, right? It's a little older. It's from an independent organization. I usually like to kind of, whenever I get articles like this that I'm not entirely sure of the valid, of how valid they are, I like to kind of look at who the organization is. It looks like the independent journalism group has some, features in Atlantic, Bloomberg, right? That's kind of interesting, right? But it appears to be an independent organization. The author has written one article, right? So anyways, jumping into it, basically what he's trying to say is, this is the photo. Everyone's like, okay, so what happened, right? Elon Musk is 49 years young. How did that transition occur, right? Jeff Bezos, goes from here to 57 years young today. What's going on, right? And then Sergey Brin, right? He's 42 years young and, looks pretty good, right? So what the article is really trying to highlight, and let's kind of start with it. There is a natural hormone mediated life cycle to a businessman's career. When he's young, he goes for broke and often goes broke. He borrows big, fights hard, and doesn't take no for an answer, and builds an empire. In middle age, the business still expands and the CEO's waistline expands too. He's more content with steady growth. He doesn't feel a need to do anything, especially revolutionary, right? So as he slows down, so does the business. Retirement is a blessing, right? So he's trying to draw a connection, obviously, between hormones and a businessman's life. It's kind of interesting. He has, as you read through it, this is true. Some of it is true, like, testosterone levels are falling. We're not entirely sure why. There's, the idea that parabens, phthalates, that are in our plastics, our deodorants, kind of our lotions, right? Shampoos and so forth, that's causing some issues. There's challenges with regard to our water, right? And there's a lot of kind of environmental aspects that are causing testosterone levels to be lower for this generation versus the prior generation versus your grandfather's generation, right? So we're not entirely sure about that. That's interesting. He mentions that in terms of a business standpoint, right? The stuff that Arnold used, though, however, is mostly illegal. And I will say that bodybuilding dosages, like 600 mg of testosterone and other types of substances, mostly are illicit, and so it's not entirely the case. But interestingly enough, he kind of goes on and talks about the three CEOs, right? An individual that was in the semiconductor space in the early 2000s, .com, right? .com. And then he kind of goes in and, tries to kind of draw out basically a connection between their actions, hormone cycles. There is something interesting here. He says, he is trying to say that if you're jacking your T levels up to 50% above peak human levels for years on end, you'll have a hard time making it past 50. That's not entirely true. What he might be referring to is if you're taking like excessively high amounts, anything above 200 mg a week of testosterone, that's clearly you're not going to be microdosing. For microdosing TRT, you would be doing, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? So it would be maybe for some clients 15 or 20 or 30 mg, right? On the high level, 40 mg. Or if you're doing every odd day, right? It'd be 10, right? 15, 20 like that mg, right? So it's not going to be like these crazy levels. That's not necessarily true. In the separate video, we have a study from Oxford University that confirms that 83,000 men that did a study of TRT had benefits, right? It was cardioprotective, preventative against heart disease. So I'm not entirely sure he has that correct. But he is trying to write a good story, and it is a very interesting story, right? So then he tries to kind of draw in the idea of drug cycles and economic cycles, which is kind of I have to give him credit for this. This is very interesting to me that he was able to do that, which is super neat. For truthfulness is I'm not entirely sure. Causation and correlation, right? That's the challenge, right? Which is which. But it was a super interesting article. I think my takeaways are that like great. It's like everyone wants to figure out like what it takes to be hyper successful, right? And it's so easy to be like, okay, well, and pull it down to, oh, okay, well, these guys are juicing up or they're taking all these drugs, right? Or drug-ridden entrepreneurs, right? But I think the real truth is it's basically they do the small things and they have an edge in like all aspects of life, right? And so those edges, like those 1% edges compound over time, right? So if they are, able to kind of process information faster, have our higher auditory processing, if they're taking modafinil, for example, or other nootropics, right, then it increase their cognition and their focus and their ability to be, right, working, right? Those are kind of things that are 1%, increases that multiply over time and over days. And, if you think about it, right, a lot of these individuals are masters of managing individuals that are highly talented and creating cultures that kind of attract the right people, like Steven Schwartz would say a 10 out of 10, founder of Blackstone, right? And so kind of having all these skill sets and always having like an advantage, I think really that's kind of the key, right? And someone, like one of my mentors always says, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So if you basically are trying to find an edge in everything you do, right? How you lead your life and how you kind of invest in your health would probably kind of, be the same, right? And so I don't think you have to be a drug-ridden entrepreneur to be hyper successful. However, to be, successful like that level, it does require kind of investment. It does require kind of making sure that you have edges, whatever you do. And obviously, we're not telling you to go, break the law or take any illicit substances and things like that. Right? Hope you enjoyed this. Just was kind of fascinating. I wanted to pass along. And for the record, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Sergey Brin are definitely taking something. We're not entirely sure though, or what they are.